We've been talking about Garrett Crochet's workload, which leads perfectly into today's session with senior advisor to pitching Brian Bannister for the Chicago White Sox. Vinny Duber asks Brian Bannister what he thinks of Garrett Crochet's future workload.
Yeah, it's nice that he's had a starter history in college, and then obviously his path was accelerated to the big leagues. My primary concern was more the strike throwing. Whenever you have a heavy walk pitcher out there trying to pitch in a starting role, they tend to have very inefficient innings, higher pitch count innings, which can disrupt the flow of his starts. But really, I think the big key, and I give credit to Ethan Katz, was just recognizing that the sweeper that he's traditionally thrown was getting clipped by right-handers. They were able to pull it for power. And Garrett, the big thing was he tucks his thumb on his fastball and his sweeper. And the key, I think, was untucking the thumb on the cutter. That was kind of the breakthrough in spring training that he did on his own, because we were trying to throw a cutter holding that same tuck thumb position that you see a Max Scherzer use, for example. And once he kind of released the thumb and put it up on the side, all of a sudden the cutter took another step forward as far as pitch quality, and it wasn't getting clipped by righties. So once you saw the sweeper usage come down, the cutter usage go up. Now all of a sudden his walk rate dropped dramatically, and he wasn't giving up the home runs that he was giving up on the sweeper. And I think that just allowed him to go out there and have very clean, efficient outing. And he's such a workhorse of a pitcher. He's massive. His force production is outstanding. He has kind of the mass of a Paul Skeens, that type of a big pitcher. And so I'm not as concerned about his durability. But what I like is the ability for him to be more efficient in his innings because of that cutter. I think smooths out the quality of his innings, and it just allows him to take a little workload off of himself, where he's not throwing a ton of 25, 30 pitch innings because of higher walks, but he's able to get through some clean innings and really keep his overall volume down and recovery up.
Pedro has talked a lot about about limiting him and trying to creatively find some ways to extend his rest and stuff like that. I know Garrett says he's not a big fan of an innings count. Do you guys have a number in mind, or is it really just trying to follow him start by start and see how he's responding?
The tricky part is what we've done to pitchers is we've basically reduced their volume and increased their output. We've turned them from marathon runners into sprinters. We've turned them from, pitchers that could throw 150 pitches like my dad did back in the day to where, 105 is a dirty number now. And the human body is pretty amazing at what it can do. It's really about finding that balance between the intensity of the output and the volume they're throwing. And so I think as an industry, as we've added more layers in sports science and more people are involved, because essentially anytime a pitcher or player gets hurt, there's perceived job risk and job security at stake for people in the industry. So what that serves to do is just keep pushing pitch counts lower and lower. But I do think true workhorse pitchers that have the frame that Crochet has are able to throw more pitches more consistently and do it for a longer period of time. And I really think the key is allowing him to have an arsenal that goes out and gets outs efficiently. So I'm not as big on strategic deloads or really reducing pitch counts. I look more at how hard does a pitcher have to work to get through his outings. And I think the way that he's pitching and the efficiency of it gives him a little more leeway. But ultimately, I defer to Pedro and the medical staff. But I think as an industry, we've probably erred too much on holding pitchers back, and that can be just as detrimental. There's many case studies of organizations trying to not throw their new draft picks for the second half of the year and not having them throw at all, and it led to actually an increase in injuries. So I think we're still as an industry trying to find that balance. I think we have some creative strategies we're going to employ into year end to preserve him, given it's going to be a big jump in workload. But I think overall, I'm very bullish on him for the future and what he's going to be able to do from a volume perspective.
Yeah, I guess how does that apply to kind of the new picks with Smith and Larson and others, and in terms of you want to kind of keep them working, but also maybe they don't have the tools yet developed the way Garrett does to work through outings efficiently, where they can have some of those high stress innings that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm always very careful. We see it more and more. You can look at the late free agent signings, the Jordan Montgomerys. I remember Alex Cobb back in the day, Greg Holland, Craig Kimbrell. Pitchers that have signed late often get off to horrible starts. And the reason is they have this big deload period where they don't want to throw because there's tens of millions of dollars at stake. And because they haven't thrown, they really never get into shape until often the second half of the year. And you're trying to avoid scenarios like that. The arm, every time you throw, it breaks down a little bit, but it elongates and stretches out. And it's actually safer for the pitcher to throw than to not throw. So I think you have to be careful of completely deloading pitchers. And really what I look to is, what have they been doing up to the draft? Are they progressively ramped up where their arm is in shape? Or did they take the time completely off once the season ended into the draft? That's a big factor. Another factor is just the medical assessment, the strength and conditioning assessment. Is there shoulder weakness? Is there elbow forearm weakness? We're trying to put all those factors into play and then put them out there and not be afraid. They are pitchers. We need them to throw. They benefit from throwing. You just don't want to elongate the season too much where their workload is way beyond anything they've done, at least with the minor league season going to the 6 days on, 1 day off format. It's a little bit of a transition between the once a week in college to the minor leagues, and then before going to every 5 days in the major leagues. So looking to have them throw, looking to have them compete, have some intent by year end, and not just completely deload them and take it off.
Hey, Brian, I think we asked you about this in Arizona, but Noah Schultz progression this year, what have you seen from overall? And I mean, how close, I don't know if this is a fair question to ask, but how close do you see him to being big league ready, even at this young age?
Got the chance after the Futures game, he came out to Chicago and we got to throw a pen during the draft week. And, he's just an exciting kid because it's an XL frame. He's extremely tall. A lot of those pitchers don't develop good body control early on. You saw the Randy Johnsons of the world take extra time to get to league average walk rates, and oftentimes in their late 20s, early 30s. But he's already got great command. He controls the zone. I don't think he really understands how much he can do with his arsenal. He can generate seam effects. He was showcasing both a cutter and a seam effects changeup while we were working with him, and those are things he hasn't even fully tapped into yet. It's primarily fastball and bigger breaking ball. So it's an exciting kid, another power lefty that throws strikes, that can really spin the ball, that has the opportunity to learn about how to use the seams for later and better movement. But really a receptive kid with tremendous aptitude and self-awareness of who he is and what he needs to do out there. A hard worker. So looking forward to having a lot of these premium lefty arms on the major league pitching staff in the near future.
No, you just talked about Schultz, but whether it's Eater or Iriarte or Bush or any of these guys, you guys haven't been shy about giving some youngsters big league chances. Do you see some of these guys from this crop of pitching prospects that you have reaching the major leagues and getting a chance before the end of this season?
I personally am a big believer in getting the minor league starters into the major league bullpen at year end. It accomplishes a couple of things. One, they learn the stadium, their surroundings, their routine, the workflow, the timing of everything that happens at the major league level. Two, they get to face major league hitters with a tick better stuff because they're coming out of the pen. So you get a little velo bump, you get a little stuff plus bump in their pitch quality. And lets them get immediate feedback, not only having a little success because their stuff's a little bit better, but two, finding out, do I have platoon splits? Are they seeing a pitch a little better than the minor leaguers are? Am I tipping in any way, trying to clean that up? It's a nice little way to kind of audit a minor league pitcher and see, is he ready to be a starter in the big leagues? So that kind of experience and that kind of transition can then carry over into the offseason as far as what they work on, and then prepare them, if they are going to stay a starter, for the next major league spring training with a little time under their belt. And I've just seen over the years pitchers that go through that type of transition really have success and really feel more confident coming off of a really productive offseason and coming out and really opening eyes in major league spring training.
And then obviously Drew Thorpe, his results have been fantastic. The last 5 starts or so. What have you noticed from your standpoint about what's making him effective and what's really promising for him as he moves forward?
It's a premium changeup. We've worked on separating out. Ethan Katz has done a good job on separating his cutter and slider. There's a hidden arm action there. That was one of the things I liked. Kind of Lucas Giolito style. You see Cutter Crawford with Boston. That hand comes out of the back of the head. It's harder to see. It's something I look for in pitchers with really, really good changeups as they hide the ball, and it doesn't give the batter additional visual information that a changeup is coming. So we can all see that the batted ball luck's been favorable so far, but to his credit, he really goes out there and wants to be an elite pitcher. He understands sequencing. He knows how to pitch. His routine in the bullpen it looks like a 10-year veteran already. So I give him a lot of credit to his poise, his ability to execute, ability to bounce back from a bad outing, and really go out there and give us 6+ innings, which every starting pitcher is struggling to do nowadays because they're tending to get pulled so fast. So these young rookies they're figuring out on the fly, but to their credit, they're holding their own. And I think with Thorpe, it's the cornerstone around the changeup and the hidden arm action.
Yeah, Brian, off of that, what's impressed you about Jonathan Cannon, particularly coming back from Charlotte?
I was able to spend time with him in AAA, and the arsenal he's trying to throw is complicated. I went through that transition with Logan Webb. You see Eric Fetty make that transition going over to Korea and coming back. It's not intuitive for everybody. Prioritizing the seams on the baseball above velocity or other mechanical cues. And so at all times, for a young pitcher, making sure that you're getting that late movement, the Greg Maddux, Kyle Hendricks type of movement where even if you don't have a lot of velo that day, you're able to get ground balls or weak contact or have a lot of efficient innings that allow you to go 6-7+ innings in a game. So even if you're giving up 3-4 runs, coming out of the game 7 innings later has a lot of value for your team, especially a team that is league average or better in run production. So, with the eye on the future, him getting a lot of these innings under his belt, understanding the adjustments he's got to make when he kind of loses the orientation of the seams on the baseball and he's not getting his best late movement or one of his pitch shapes is off a little bit. He's on an accelerated path, and it was a quick jump to the big leagues, particularly because he didn't pitch in this style last year, and he's made a lot of changes this year. So still able to do that, still able to go out and compete. He's a sneaky big physical pitcher when you stand next to him. There's a lot of mass there, and he's got a great pitcher's body. And as he continues to figure out this style of pitching the way that Eric Fetty has, I think he's going to be a workhorse in the league for a long time.
Michael Kopech has obviously had plenty of outings this year where he's looked untouchable, and he's had plenty of outings this year where the opposite has been true. What have you guys kind of recognized about his evolution and kind of what he can be moving forward?
I'm really big, anybody that's followed me for a long time, in kind of bringing, except for outliers, bringing fastball usage down closer to 50%. So it's more of a coin flip. Whenever a major league hitter who's really, really good at hitting fastballs knows that a fastball is coming 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 or even 5 out of 5 for some pitchers, they can turn around 100 miles an hour. And whether it's a pitching machine or a real human, they have no problem getting the bat to the ball. So I'm a big believer in showing your other pitches with some frequency, even if it's more to create some unpredictability with your pitch sequencing. So, Michael has elite talent. The fastball is premium, but just being able to disguise the fastball and interrupt it with some other pitches. And, he can really rip off some nice cutters, some nice bigger sliders, but just having the faith and the confidence to believe in those pitches that whether they're executed or not, they serve a purpose to set up and tunnel with his fastball and create movement in opposite directions. I think he even surprised himself sometimes when he throws what he views as a bad breaking ball, and then it ends up freezing a hitter at the top of the zone or some location that he wasn't intending, and it's still a productive out, kind of back to when he threw the immaculate inning. So there's just I think an ongoing maturation process with him understanding how to get the most out of his ability because he does have premium tools, and just having the confidence to go out there and throw more secondary pitches, even if they miss, but that it still serves the purpose of being more unpredictable to the hitter and keeping him off of fastball.
Do you still see one inning closer as the best role for him moving forward, or is it multi-inning reliever? Does he eventually become a guy who gets another chance to start? What do you see in terms of role for him?
I've always felt that he was an impact kind of fireman type guy, where whether that highest leverage moment in the game is in the 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning, he can go get those outs. And I think when he's at his best, and you've seen flashes of it this year, he's completely overwhelming to major league hitters, and only a few guys in the league have that type of physical talent. And so when he's at his best, it's not per se only the 9th inning, even though I think when he's at his best, he's a bona fide closer. But it's really just getting his mix right, having confidence in that mix, so that it gives him more margin for error with his command, and he can really let the stuff play up. Because I've had the Craig Kimbrells of the world, other premium closers, Camilo Duvall, and they don't throw perfect strikes, and they don't command the ball exceptionally well. But what they do is they tunnel their fastball and breaking ball off each other, which makes really hard zone decisions and swing decisions for the hitters, especially under pressure in late innings. And then they don't have to be perfect with their command, and it lets their premium stuff play up and generate positive, productive results, instead of just focusing on perfect command and stressing out about that in a vacuum by itself.
We all silly like the mayor.